Boom, 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 boom. A side, B side. What side are you on?
Well, how's it going? It's another week here at A Side, B Side Podcast. What's up, Adam?
Not too much. How are you, Brooke?
Pretty good. Pretty good. See anything good this week?
I actually spent a lot of time trying to catch the end of summer with kid events, and so I was able to go to my oldest theater production again, and a choir concert, and went on a picnic and walk with them, trying to do the last bit of summer. So I didn't really watch as much as I normally do. I did start the new Fantasy Island. Have you
I
seen that?
just saw that when I was on Hulu scrolling to get to Love Island. I was like, Fantasy Island, is this the movie? And it said Fox. And I was like, oh, it's a series. Is it good?
You know, I only got about 20 minutes in before I kind of got bored. I got to be honest.
Yeah, see that whole that just lets me know I don't even need to start it.
Yeah, I wanted to give it a try because like it's so weird. Like nothing new has come out. For like the last 2 weeks, it's been the Olympics everywhere,
Yeah.
and so like there were a lot of sports that were on hiatus, and like my cooking shows with Gordon Ramsay were all like waiting for the Olympics to be over, and so it felt like everything was just like on pause. And they're like, "Oh, hey, here's this new show," and I was like, "Well, it's something new coming out. Let's give it a try." And I like Rosalind Sanchez, and the idea of Fantasy Island has always been more interesting than any episodes I've seen.
So is she the new Mr. York?
Yeah, so she's like the grand niece of Ricardo Montalban,
Okay.
and it didn't hook me. I was like, okay, the first episode revolves around a TV anchor who is constantly hungry and feels like she has to like be on these fad diets all the time because she's on TV every day and people comment on it, and then her fantasy was like to eat anything she wanted and not gain weight. And I was like, okay, well that's cool, I
Isn't
guess.
that every girl's dream though? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean anybody is your dream. And I was like, okay, I guess that's interesting. And then the other one was a couple, and the wife has terminal cancer, and they want to just enjoy like one last week of just not being in pain and have a good time. And they go to a waterfall and they like turn into their younger selves, and they're having a great time. I was just like, oh, okay. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I guess I was kind of spooked by, because didn't Jordan Peele do a movie like horror version of Fantasy Island?
Was that Jordan Peele's?
Maybe I'm just
There was a horror version of Fantasy Island.
okay.
I didn't realize that was Jordan Peele's though.
It might not be. I guess I'm at the point now where it was Blumhouse. So it
Okay,
wasn't Jordan
yes.
Peele. It was Blumhouse. My bad. So I guess I just assume at this point I'm just like, well, every horror movie is
It's
Jordan
Jordan Peele.
Peele. But in reality, it's every horror movie is Jordan Peele or Blumhouse.
Which is the truth.
Yeah.
Yes. At this point, yes.
So it was last night, and I had had a really nice evening. I went out to dinner with my folks, and I went to the kids' choir concert, and they've been working with this Sunday nights that they would practice with Angelica Cantanti, which is a youth choir that they've been a part of for, 12 years, 10, 12 years, which hasn't been able to do anything because of COVID. And so they've been meeting in a park and singing, and they had this really nice little concert. It was, about an hour, but it was a great evening. And I got home and I took a nice long walk with the dog, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to sit down and watch some stuff. And I watched an episode of Hell's Kitchen because they finally were back after 2 weeks, and it's the Young Guns. Another one where I don't know. I'm not connecting with any of the characters.
Hmm.
Like it's one of those where like usually by this point in the season you're down to 10. You could be like, okay, I like this person. I think this person's going to win. I'm hoping this person does well. And I'm at the point now where I'm just like, I'm not really all that invested in any of them. So that's weird. But so after that, I was like, oh, okay, Fantasy Island. I decided to record it. And I guess I'd had such a nice day. I was scared it was going to turn like scary, or like what threw me off at the very beginning. It's got the warning it's like adult content, language, nudity, and then violence. I was like, why is there a warning for violence?
Although, if I remember correctly, not that it was ever really shown, but with the old Fantasy Island, I mean, the whole thing was your wishes are always flipped on their head.
Yeah. Like, be careful what you wish for type of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so I feel like this might be a combination movie / TV show. Like, they took bits from the movie, bits from the TV show, because the movie was a bit violent.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
I was just like, I don't have it in me right now. And so I turned it off.
Oh, and we need to add A24 into that as well.
Oh, for all the horror movies? Yeah. Because they did the the Green Knight.
The Green Knight, yeah.
Yeah.
I did watch the new Suicide Squad. It's the Suicide Squad, because the old one is just Suicide Squad, and the new one is the Suicide Squad.
And they're not connected.
They don't reference it.
Okay.
But I believe it is the same. Yes, I believe it is a sequel. They just don't necessarily reference the first one, but some of the characters know each other, and they obviously know each other from the first one.
Okay. So it's like, hey, we don't want to talk about, we're not avenging what happened in the first one. It's just, that was a thing that happened.
Right. And apparently, okay, well, first, let me just say that this one I liked so much better. It's very funny. In the first one, they had Will Smith as, what was it, Deadshot?
Yeah, I think it's Deadshot.
And then in this one, Idris Elba is, oh goodness, I can't remember his character's name now. He's Bloodsport. So
okay, so they're not playing the same. I messed it up. I thought they were the same.
No, they're not the same person. Black guys are not interchangeable, Adam.
I know.
No, they're two totally different characters. And John Cena's in this one. Michael Rooker, which I think is hilarious, because I think that who did this one again? Who's the director on it? James Gunn. James Gunn likes Michael Rooker.
Yeah, they're like best buds.
Yeah, I think I texted you. Did I text you about it?
Nathan. Yeah. Well, because like you were saying, Michael Rooker was in both DC and Marvel, but so was Elba, because he was the
that's right. He's the gatekeeper
Thor.
in Thor. Yeah.
And that's Nathan Fillion had a cameo in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a voice cameo, but he played one of the.
Oh, it's about all he has in this one. No spoilers. It's not a huge part, but
yeah, I figured it probably was.
I will say that. So with the Justice League, the original Suicide Squad, with the Justice League, they kind of took things over from what's his name, Zack Snyder.
Yeah,
and Zack Snyder had a vision. And then the studio came in and they kind of completely revamped it. And that's why so many people kind of thought that an original movie sucked. And then there was like this whole campaign, release the Snyder cut. Well, apparently the same thing kind of happened with David Ayer. David Ayer had one vision for Suicide Squad, which has been panned horribly. And he's like, that's not my movie. So now I guess there's a campaign for like, release the Ayer cut. So that may happen at some point.
Yeah, I mean, especially with all the streaming options you got now, if you can, it's not as like, it costs money to put a movie into the theater, you got to like actually send out the tapes and promote it. But like, if you've got the cut and you've got a streaming service, it's like, might as well.
Yeah. I would be very interested to see his version of Suicide Squad, because he said it's very, very different. But Margot Robbie does a stunt in this movie that is impressive, and it is actually her doing a stunt, and it is like, when you see it, you're like, well, okay, Margot Robbie. So
I mean, it's neat that she played Harley in that, and then Birds of Prey, which I thought wasn't horrible.
No, it wasn't bad.
I mean, it was over the top. But
Intentionally.
yeah, and that's what I feel like the Suicide Squad is going to be too.
Yes, it is very over the top intentionally. It's got some really funny moments. Of course, Idris is great. John Cena is hilarious in it. Because
they're doing like a series with him, aren't they?
well, yes, and that's kind of that's a spoiler.
Oh, okay. But I mean, I knew it was coming because they've been promoting it on the Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, but I don't think that was released until after the movie came out.
Oh, okay.
Because that's that's an end credit.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way I had heard it is that it might be like a prequel thing, but
I don't know. It might be. I don't know. It's not set up that way, but I don't know.
Okay.
But I also started watching White Lotus on HBO Max, which I was under the impression it was like a murder mystery, and I have no idea what it is. It is all over the place. It's got Steve Zahn. It's got Connie. I can't think of her last name. She was in Friday Night Lights. She was also in Dear John.
Was it not Nielsen?
No. Connie Nielsen? No,
that's not. That's a Danish actress.
I said
Connie
Dear
Britton.
Connie Britton.
Connie
Yeah.
Britton. Yeah.
Dirty John. I said Dear John. Dirty John. Connie Britton. It's also got Jennifer. Oh gosh, I just literally said her name the other day. Stifler's mom from American Pie. She's also
yeah.
And Legally Blonde. Jennifer, whatever. Anyway,
and Alexandria Daddario.
Yeah, which I know her name and her face, but I've not seen anything that she's in. Jennifer Coolidge. It finally came to me. I knew it was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she was like the girlfriend in the first season of White Collar, and then she was in the Percy Jackson movies.
Didn't see it.
Oh, and then she was in the Baywatch movie with The Rock and
Zac Efron. I don't think I saw that one. So that's why I'm saying I know her face. I've never seen anything she's been in, but it's funny. It's quirky. It's all over the place. I don't really know where they're going with it. So yeah, watch it.
Yeah, I will. So it's again, I am, weak, and I avoid things if I think they're going to be like
it's not violent,
scary.
It's not
scary.
But
it because the trailer tried to like kind of gave you that feeling like it was going to be like a murder mystery or things are going to go bad or it's going to like sort of like a one of those what was like oh gosh, what's the name of it? It was like bad things happen or like some hotel where like all the bad things happen.
No, it's not like that. It's actually okay. I feel like it's more comedy than anything.
Oh, good. Well,
yeah, I never watched the trailer, and like I said, I was under the impression it was supposed to be a murder mystery, but it's more comedy than anything. It's wild. It's So check it out.
I am very excited, and I've been meaning to talk to you about this, but it's All Our Neighbors Are Murderers. I'm trying to think. It's got Steve Martin and
is that the one that has Selena Gomez in it?
Yes, Selena Gomez and then Martin Short, and it looks like it is. So what is it? Only Murderers in the Building. So it's a Hulu like who done it, and there's these three people live in the building, and so there's some murderer, and they're trying to figure it out. Which I mean, I feel like if it doesn't work, I'm going to be so disappointed because it's got like several.
It's got Steve Martin and Martin Short. How can it not be good?
Yeah, and Selena Gomez, and it's a murder mystery. Like I love all of these things, and it's got Nathan Lane, Tina Fey, Sting. So it's got quite the cast. So I'm hopeful it's good, but it comes out at the end of the month. But it was one of those things where each time I see the trailer, I'm like, we got to talk about that, and we just never have.
Well, then I'm putting that on my list.
Yeah. Because I feel like it would be something that we would both enjoy.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, I haven't been watching as much, but I got a bunch of my records out of storage over the last month, and I have two old Steve Martin stand-up records, which are absolutely hilarious. I've been playing them just to kind of like.
I will always and forever love the jerk.
Oh, I mean, Three Amigos is ridiculous, but still makes me laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So are you ready for a B-side?
Yes, I am.
All right. So when I say that I love true crime and like my friends love true crime, I hope my friends love true crime on this level because I feel like I would. I feel like I would.
Okay.
So this is the story of Angela Samata and someone else, but we'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil the reveal.
So Angela, aka Angie Marie Samata, was born September 19th of 1964 in Alameda, California. So Angie was a junior at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. So she went from California to Dallas, and she was studying computer science and electrical engineering, like brains and beauty, because she's a very cute girl. She was also in the sorority Zeta Tau Alpha. So on October 12th of 1984, Angela and two of her friends, Russell Buchanan and Anita Cadella, went to the State Fair of Texas. I mean, yeah, hello. Have you heard about Texas State Fair and the things they make there?
Yeah, Minnesota State Fair is always very jealous of the Texas State Fair because Minnesota is evidently the second biggest one, but Texas is bigger. But then we always quibble over they also have a rodeo, so it doesn't count that they're bigger. Yeah, you didn't think there was going to be that level of, bitterness, but there is.
The Texas State Fair always introduces like weird food items that like you're like, does that shouldn't work, but I'm pretty sure it does.
Oh yeah, that's a minute. We do that up in Minnesota too.
Okay.
Like gator on a stick, and like right now, like the big thing is craft beer. Like every
stick?
Well, no, yeah, on a stick because they'll put it on like a paddle that you put the cup into, so it's on a stick. But it's like every local brewery has to come up with something ridiculous for the state fair, whether it's like the s'mores beer or like chocolate covered ice cream or, it's all over the top.
So Angie invited her boyfriend to go along with her and her friends to the state fair. His name's Ben McCall, but he declined because, well, he had to get up really early for work. He's a construction foreman. And I feel like unless you work in a factory, the only other people or nurses, the only other people that get up that early, like as early as radio people, are like construction people because they're already out. By the time I'm leaving for work, they're already out. They're working over,
Yeah.
After the fair, the three, Angie, Anita, and Russell, then head to the Rio Room, which was a dance club. And they stayed there till just after midnight. According to a Rio Room employee named David Skelton, Angie did not appear to be intoxicated when the three left the club. Russell, in his testimony, Russell Buchanan, the friend she was with, in his testimony said that while they were at the club, Angie was, quote, going from table to table talking to people. He also noted that it seemed like she knew everyone. So very bright, very personable, beautiful, smart. Angie has it all going for her. So they leave the club and Angie takes her friends home. She drops off Russell first around 1 a.m. at his apartment on Matilda Street in Lower Greenville, a neighborhood in East Dallas. Russell's apartment was about a 5-minute walk from Angie's condo in Amesbury. Russell said in court that after he was dropped off, he went to bed and fell asleep. So after Angie drops off Russell, she then drops off Anita. After dropping off Anita, Angie then stops by her boyfriend Ben's apartment to say goodnight, and then she went home. Angie called Ben about 1:45 a.m., and here's where things go weird. So she, stopped by to see him, said goodnight, and then she called him about 1:45, which, I get it. You're just like, okay, I miss you. Good night. And then, you're like, okay, I just wanted to tell you good night again. I get it. That's not the weird part. That's not what I'm saying is weird. Ben told police that when Angela called, she sounded nervous. And then he heard noises in the background. Then Angie tells him that she had let a man in who had asked to use the bathroom and a phone. Talk to me, she says to Ben. Then she tells Ben, I'm going to call you right back. And she hangs up. Ben's waiting for her to call back. He's waiting for her to call back, and she doesn't. So when she doesn't call back, he calls her. She doesn't answer. Now Ben is nervous because he's already heard her sound nervous. He's heard noises in the background. She's let some person in. She's not answering her phone. So Ben gets up. He goes to Angie's place to check on her. When he gets there, the doors are locked. No one answers. So now remember, this is the 80s, okay? So cell phones were not like the big thing back then, but he happened to have an early generation cell phone from work that he used, and he called information, who then connected him with the police. The police arrive at 2:17 a.m. and they break down the door. When they get inside, they find Angie on the bed. Angie is completely naked and completely covered in blood. Unfortunately, she's also not alive. The autopsy from the state medical examiner stated that Angie had been raped and stabbed 18 times. She was stabbed in her chest, punctuating her heart. So blood and semen were collected from Angie's body. But again, this is the 80s. DNA evidence was nowhere what it is today. You know, now they collect that, they run it through CODIS, and it's like, boop, you know, if the person's in the system, they're going to get a hit. Right. This was the 80s. So the first two suspects, obviously, because they found semen, Angela's boyfriend, Ben, and her male friend, Russell, who, remember, was a 5-minute walk. Mm-hmm. One additional suspect was one of Angie's ex-boyfriends. There was no concrete evidence tying any of them to the case, so none of them were ever charged. During examinations, medical personnel stated that Angie's attacker was a non-secretor, and that cleared Ben and her previous ex. So if you're like me, when I was researching this, I was like, what is a non-secretor? Well,
yeah, do I want to know?
Because I got all the knowledge, I'm going to tell you. Actually, I'm just kidding. I had to look it up.
Yeah.
A person who's a secretor secretes or produces or discharges their blood type antigens into their bodily fluids, like their saliva or their semen.
Okay.
A non-secretor does not produce, or if they do, it's very little amounts of their blood type antigen into their bodily fluids.
Huh. I had no idea that was a thing. I just assumed everybody's DNA was in their blood, their bodily fluids.
Well, I guess it's not their DNA, it's their blood type. Like, okay. So different.
Yeah.
So Russell, her male friend, said that she had gone out with that night, took a polygraph test, and he passed. So her boyfriend, her current boyfriend, her ex, were ruled out because they were not, they didn't match like I said, he was a non-secretor, and apparently they were secretors, which just sounds gross. Can we stop saying secrete now?
Yeah, I think we know they were. Yeah. I'm trying to think, is there a better way to say that? There's really not.
No, because that's the term.
Yeah.
And then Russell took a polygraph and he passed. So the case, they have no suspects. The case goes cold. Well, enter Sheila Wysocki. That was Angie's friend and roommate who attended SMU. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they were roommates at the time of the incident or previously. I tried to find that out and I couldn't. One source said it was at the time of the incident and that Sheila was out of town, but I couldn't verify that with any additional source. So Sheila said the murder happened. She said, quote, "The murder happened in my entire life and security crumbled." Sheila made it her mission to find out who was responsible for Angela's death. She even offered to the police to talk to a suspect about their alibi, checked it out. It was verified. Case goes cold. And, you know, life as it does goes on. Sheila married, had children, but she never, ever really gave up on finding out what happened to her friend and roommate. She was constantly like calling the police and asking for updates, finally frustrated with the lack of info and progress on the case. And with the help of a vision, she said, from Angie, Sheila takes things into her own hands 25 years after Angie's death by becoming a private investigator in Tennessee. She figured if she became a private investigator, then the police would finally work with her, right?
Right.
No, they didn't. But it was her persistence that helped solve the case, or as they called it, badgering. So Sheila said they were like sick and tired of hearing from her, and they ended up assigning a detective, Linda Crum, to reopen and re-examine the case. You know, she had to be called. That's why I'm telling you, I feel like I would be this kind of friend, and I hope that my friends that are into true crime would be this kind of friend as well. Like, do not give up, because it takes persistence sometimes. I mean, if there's nothing there, you know, every day new technology comes out. You might be able to take that DNA and that evidence, and, you know, it might not be here today, but, you know, next week, you don't know what's going to be there. So I admire her persistence. So in 2006, Detective Crum used DNA evidence from a rape kit that police had initially said was lost in the Dallas floods. Somehow it was found again. That evidence was blood, semen, and fingernail samples. And they used that to try to find a match among the criminal database. The results took 2 years. In 2008, the results pointed to Donald Andrew Bess, who was 36 at the time of Angela's murder and was on parole while serving a 25-year sentence for aggravated assault and aggravated kidnapping for a crime unrelated to Angela's. He committed this crime and killed Angie while out on parole for another violent offense. In 2008, he was already serving a life sentence at Huntsville Prison in Texas for another unrelated rape, assault, and kidnapping. This guy's a real class act, isn't he?
Jeez.
Real gentleman right here. The DNA was a perfect match. Donald Bess went on trial in 2010 for Angela's murder and was found guilty in her rape and her murder. During the punishment phase of his trial, several women came forward and testified that they had been raped by this absolute monster, including his ex-wife, who said he abused her and their child during their 3-year marriage. They married in 1969 and divorced in 1972. So on June 8th of 2010, Donald Bess was given the death penalty. On March 6th of 2013, the appeal that he had filed was rejected and the judgment stood. On August 13th of 2013, I want to say this right. Certiorari petition was filed to the U.S. Supreme Court. That's a process to get a judicial review of a decision made on a lower court. So in April of 2016, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals refused the appeal submitted by Donald Bess, upholding the initial court's rulings. Probably as a result of Sheila, in 2016, the Dallas Police Department reestablished a unit dedicated to researching old cases, cold cases. In 2001, so just to clarify, Donald Bess, death sentence stands. He is currently still on death row. He's at Pulaski Prison in Texas. No set execution date. Angela was laid to rest at the Llano Cemetery in Amarillo, Texas. In 2021, this year, ID Channel's Betrayed Co-ed Killer reenacted the case and included the identification of Donald Bess. Now, what about Sheila? Initially, Sheila said that it was going to be a one and done for her. She became a private investigator because she wanted to help solve Angela's case. She thought, you know what? Okay, I solved it and I'm done. And she was going to give up her PI license. But she, according to her website, she started, which is SheilaWysocki.com. She started receiving letters from around the world begging for her help because they had mysteriously lost a loved one. She said, I just couldn't say no. She's worked on over 100 complicated cases and was nominated as one of the top 20 best Nashville PIs and voted the number 6 most influential women private investigator. She's been featured in the Washington Post. She's appeared on Anderson Cooper. She's appeared with Katie Couric. She's been on ABC's 2020, Crime Watch Daily, and A&E's I Solved a Murder, which also reenacted the case. She works out of Tennessee and out of Texas. So if you need a private investigator, I'm going to say she might be pricey. I don't know. I haven't looked at her rates, but she seems to get the job done. And the old joke, like nobody finds out things like women. I mean, she's proving this. She's taking this to a whole nother level.
And I mean, if you would want somebody that, like, you're never going to have, if you hired somebody, they're not going to be as dedicated to the case as somebody who's, has an emotional investment,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But
somebody's connected to it.
Right. Yeah. But that is how best friend Sheila Wysocki helped to solve the case of Angela Samara. That's the B-side.
I like when there's obviously there could never be a happy ending with most of these, but it is, I think, satisfying.
It is satisfying because even though it took 25 years, Angela got justice, and she got justice because her best friend would not let up.
Wouldn't quit.
And that's sometimes you just have to take things in your own hands and just keep at it. But I found that story like way intriguing.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially like to just look at it from friendship perspective. Like, I think we all hope we have people that would, go to that level of, dedication to us. I mean, that's a pretty intense level of friendship.
Right? That's what I'm saying. I would hope. I know my mom would. My mom would be kicking down doors, but I'm hoping there's some friends there helping her out if something was to ever happen. Knock on wood that it never does, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. Let's really hope that never happens. But
right.
I do like the fictional idea, like of writing like like short stories about your mom, like creating like a fictional universe where your mom turns into like this like equalizer, like Queen Latifah level, like Denzel Washington, like going around and like just taking care of business. I think that would be awesome. So just on a fictional,
just on a fictional level
universe,
yeah.
That's a fictional universe that I want to be a part of.
I can totally see it. Yeah, mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There is no. I mean, the love of a best friend is huge, but I mean, it can't compare to a mother. The motivation of a mother investigate. That would be a mountain and a molehill there. So
she is the reason I love true crime. So I could totally see it. All right. So there you go. That's the B-side. Well, this week, okay, even though it is a true crime story, there is just something about this story that is just captivating. First of all, not that the guy is a good dude or anything. He did not directly kill anyone. He is responsible for a death, which we'll find out how, but what he himself didn't actually kill anybody. And just this story, Adam, you'll find you may have actually heard about this story and didn't even realize it.
Oh, that I will already say is 100% true, because there are so many things that I've heard of that I didn't realize.
So this is the story of John Wadowitz. So John was born March 9th in 1945 in Brooklyn. Speaking of New York, speaking of Gotham.
Look at that. Tie-ins left and right.
John was the son of a Polish father and an Italian-American mother. His early years were pretty typical. I mean, nothing really stood out about it, nothing really to talk about. He graduated high school and then he went into the army and he ended up serving in Vietnam. So while in basic training, John had his very first same-sex encounter with what he dubbed a quote, hillbilly by the name of Wilbur. In an interview, John describes dreaming of a sexual encounter only to wake up and find, well, he wasn't actually dreaming. He woke up in the midst of Wilbur performing a sex act on him. He didn't dislike it, he didn't stop him. John and Wilbur ended up maintaining a relationship until he left for Vietnam. This relationship had a deep, deep impact on John. John was also deeply impacted by his time in Vietnam, as you know. I think all soldiers who were in Vietnam were deeply impacted. He was actually one of the only survivors of a rocket attack on his base. Oof. His mother, Terry, once was quoted as saying, when he was a kid, he was good. He was no trouble. The service screwed him all up. So John returns home after being discharged in 1967, and he began working for Chase Manhattan Bank. This is where he meets Carmen Bifulco. The two begin a relationship and they quickly get married, like in the same year. The two ended up having 2 children before separating in 1969. So 67, he's returns home, he's discharged, meets Carmen. By 69, they've been married, had 2 kids, and he's left her. So he leaves the family because he wants to find himself and pursue new relationships. Remember what I said earlier? He was impacted by that relationship he started in basic training. So in 1969, John joins the gay liberation movement. He's not, don't be like, oh, well, what a great guy. He wants to be no, he's not really trying to be an activist. John is really trying to just meet other gay men and party. So John, in 1971, meets Liz Eden, pre-surgery female. Liz identifies as female, but John called her by her dead name, Ernie Aaron. John and Liz married pretty quickly in an unofficial ceremony, because remember, they couldn't legally marry at that time. The ceremony was a lavish bash. I mean, like, went all out. Liz wore a flowing white wedding gown. Despite Liz having the wedding of her dreams, though, she was depressed because Liz really desired, she really longed for gender reassignment surgery. And it was expensive. It's expensive now. So imagine in the 70s. Okay. It was expensive and it just seemed unattainable to her. So it just added on to her depression to the point where she was having some suicidal thoughts. Initially, at first, John did not approve of Liz's desire for surgery. But after a suicide attempt put Liz in the hospital, she went to Kings County Psych Ward. He changed his tune and decided that she needed to have the surgery. Unfortunately, financially, he was unable to provide that. So he decided, in order to fund it, he was going to do something. He was
get
going
a second job.
You would think, right? A little side hustle. His side hustle was called rob a bank.
You know, quick money. That's very one day gig.
Yeah. So it should be noted that there are rumors that the true reason, or at least partially, for the bank robbery, the bank heist, was to repay money he owed to the mafia, the Gambino family. Again, being in New York or being from New York, you know all about the Gambino family. So John enlisted 2 buddies to help him pull off this plan to rob a Chase Manhattan bank. Remember, that's where he was working. Mm-hmm. So Salvatore Sal Natural was 19 and Robert Bobby Westenberg were his 2 buddies. Well, John had previously worked at the bank and he thought he'd be able to pull off the heist flawlessly. Well, we're telling the story, so probably not so flawless, right?
Right.
Just before the robbery on August 22nd of 1972, the trio go to a movie theater in Times Square to watch The Godfather. Fun side note, Al Pacino connects to this story more than once. So The Godfather was released in March of 1972, and unlike now, movies actually stayed in theaters for quite a bit of time. Released March 24th, 1972, it stayed in theaters until the end of the year, earning $81.5 million in North American box offices. Today, that would be like $526 million.
Yeah.
So that's
Crazy.
that's Avengers level. That's how
Yeah.
big that movie was.
Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah. So the trio was deeply inspired by the film, and their ransom note read, "This is an offer you can't refuse." Sorry, that was my best Godfather. Oh,
That wasn't,
no.
hey, wasn't bad.
So they're all amped up after their midday matinee. So now it's time to rob the bank. So this motley crew was not the finely tuned instrument you'd imagine, because I mean, well, they did just watch The Godfather and go, "Ooh, here's a great idea for a ransom note."
Yeah. We could totally do this.
So they first tried to rob a bank on Manhattan's Lower East Side, but one of them dropped a shotgun getting out of the car. It went off. And of course, it drew a crowd, drew a lot of attention. So they quickly leave the scene. Next, they tried a bank in Queens Howard Beach, but again, the plans were interrupted when Bobby ran into his mother's best friend just as they were getting ready to execute their plan. Probably not a good idea to rob that bank then.
Yeah. Bobby, what are you up to?
Right. How's your mother?
Just good. Here, can you hold my shotgun?
Can you put this mask over your head too? So in Manhattan, there was another attempt, but after crashing into a car during a dry run, that bank was abandoned as well. So if you think this sounds like a movie, just wait. Just wait.
Like at some point, guys, just like
Let it
car-
go.
yeah, like karma's like trying to tell you something here.
So finally, they set on Chase Manhattan. But just before they entered, Bobby Westenberg got cold feet because he saw a police car on the street. He threw up the deuces and was like, "I'm out, bro."
He was like, well, maybe this is finally karma catching my attention.
Bobby and John were actually apparently a bit more than buddies, having been intimate the previous evening. Yep, the evening before robbing a bank to get money for his wife's reassignment surgery. Actually, they were separated, but you get my point, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So John and Sal enter Chase Manhattan in the Gravesend section of Brooklyn. They slip a teller the ransom note. "This is an offer you can't refuse." And, and here's where it gets really interesting, as if it hasn't already been a wild ride.
Right.
Now the duo take the bank occupants hostage. 7 bank employees, seven total, including bank employees. Some say 8, some sources say 8, for what would be more than a day and a half, or a half a day, 14 hours
Oof,
to be
a long
exact.
time.
Before the standoff started, the pair managed to get $38,000 in cash and $175,000 in traveler's checks, even though the bank's safe was half empty. One bank employee was able to hit the alarm, and the building was quickly surrounded. Remember, that's why Bobby left, because there was a cop sitting right across the street.
Yeah. Doesn't take long to surround a place you're already at.
Police set up outside, and an afternoon straight out of the movies begins. It didn't take long before a crowd of 2,000 people were gathered outside to take in the scene. It is movie worthy. I keep saying that for a reason. Along with the crowd, the FBI, police snipers on rooftops, TV crews, and emergency services were all on site. Journalist Robert Bob Capstetter said that was a Brooklyn crowd that night. It was a full-blown show. Bob's very important, and he'll come back up in a minute.
Okay.
So John knew his role, and he played it well. He was the sympathetic hostage taker. He immediately demanded food for the hostages. He ordered pizza. When it was delivered, he generously tipped the delivery guy and even tossed some of the money, the ill-gotten gains, out into the crowd. The hostages themselves even grew a fondness for John. They weren't like afraid of John or afraid for themselves, but it was summertime. It's hot. They're exhausted. It's been a long day. Teller Shirley Ball said in an interview, I recalled that he was friendly, had a purpose for robbing the bank. He thought he'd be in and out, which is, he really did think he'd be in and out.
Yeah.
So speaking of his purpose, about 2 hours into the negotiations, John demanded to see his wife in exchange for the release of the hostages. He said, I want them to deliver my wife here from Kings County Hospital. His name is Ernest Aaron. It's a guy. I'm gay. That was his quote. Again, he refused to call Liz by the name she chose and kept calling her by her dead name. So earlier I mentioned Bob Capstatter. Bob's shift as a journalist began at 5 o'clock, which was just a couple of hours into the ordeal. Bob picks up the phone. He just says, you know what? I'm just going to try it. He picks up the phone and he calls the bank, wondering if John would answer. He did. Bob said he opened the conversation with, so how's it going? To which John replied, how do you think? So after his phone interview, Bob he heads over to the bank. He's like, I got to interview this guy in person. So he goes over to the bank and John lets him in. John announces to the viewing audience that he was robbing the bank to fund his wife's operation, endearing him to some, and then, of course, causing scorn in others. Mm-hmm. John's demand of seeing Elizabeth was surprisingly met. Liz, still in her hospital gown, was forcibly brought to the bank, but once on site, she refused to go into the bank to speak to John. She wasn't convinced that this was truly all about her. You see, she and John had actually broken up over her desire for the surgery. John's mother was also on site. She did speak to John. So John's demands soon changed. He wanted a plane to get out of the country. The FBI said no and made things in the bank very uncomfortable. First, they cut the phone lines, which was a big deal because John had been allowing the hostages to call family and keep in touch with them and just kind of update them and say, hey, we're good. I'm fine. Everything's okay in here. The FBI figured the loss of connection would turn the hostages against John. It didn't. They know who cut the phone line. They know it wasn't John. He'd been letting them use the phone all the time. Next, they turn off the air conditioning because, remember, it was hot. It was real hot. It was the middle of summer. They turn off the air, thinking, all right, now we got him. Still, it didn't turn the hostages against John. So the FBI relented and they gave in to the demands of John, who promised to release a hostage at each step along the journey until he and Sal were to safety, because they wanted a plane. So along the journey to the airport, when they get to one airport, when they get to another, when they get out of the country, they were going to let a hostage go each step of the way. So the FBI brought a vehicle that transported John and Sal and the remaining hostages to John F. Kennedy Airport. He did let go of one hostage at the bank. And before he even got into the vehicle, John did a sweep of the vehicle, checked it to make sure there was no hidden weapons and all of that. So they end up at John F. Kennedy Airport. When they arrive, their plane is not there as promised, but they promised John, don't worry, it's en route. Mm-hmm. So using this distraction, there's a plane that's coming in, and using that distraction of the incoming plane, agents shot and killed 19-year-old Sal Naturale with a concealed weapon. Like I said, John had actually inspected the vehicle before they got in, but this driver, who was actually an agent, he gets out, he goes talk to another agent, gets the weapon, This caused John to surrender, thus ending the 14-hour ordeal, but not the story. So John watched Al Pacino in The Godfather, but John also watched Al Pacino as himself. On April 23rd, 1973, I'll tell you about that. Don't worry. John was sentenced to 20 years in Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary. It was there that John met his next wife, George Heath. George was a bank robber and a jailhouse lawyer. The pair married on the prison yard on July 31st of 1974. George said, quote, he loved to be married. He had to have a wife, so I became the third wife. George even said that he and Carmen, the first wife, were friendly and would wave to each other when she would visit. John was released on April 10th of 1978. So filmmakers asked John if they could buy the rights to his story. He agreed, but with the stipulation that the money was used to go to Elizabeth for her surgery, which she did receive. How much money did John get? Well, initially, he was set to receive $7,500 plus 1% of the film's net profits. The film earned an estimated $50 million in the US and Canada. Ooh. John did not see all of that money. John later ended up suing Warner Brothers and earned an additional $100,000. Even though Liz did get her surgery and eventually remarried, things unfortunately didn't end super happy for her. Liz and her second husband divorced, and she passed on September 29th of 1987 at Genesee Hospital in Rochester, New York, due to AIDS-related pneumonia. John actually attended her funeral and gave a eulogy. Even though their marriage ended badly, Liz did visit John when he was rearrested for parole violations in 1984 and again in 86 and 87. He was released in April of 1987. All right. So I know you've been like, okay, give me the Al Pacino story. I need to know it, right?
What movie is this?
All right, Adam, I'm going to give you the title. The movie is Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon, which was released in 1975 while John was still incarcerated.
Wow, they weren't messing around. They turned that around quick.
Very quickly. So Al Pacino played the title character, Sonny Wartzik, inspired by John. Mm-hmm. Of course, even the outspoken one, or ever the outspoken one, John would be critical of the film's inaccuracies. So also in the movie, Chris Sarandon, who was also in The Godfather, played Leon based on Elizabeth Eden. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me get back to the inaccuracies. John said it didn't show the whole truth. The little it did show was constantly twisted and distorted. The movie was a critical success, even despite John's,
problems with it.
Right, yeah. It received 6 Oscar nominations and 1 win for screenplay. So in prison, the smooth-talking John convinced the warden to screen the film. And by smooth-talking, I basically mean blackmailing. The warden initially said no to John's request to screen the film. And then John said, if you don't show this in this prison, I'll go to the press and I'll hang you by your effing cannolis. I'll start the biggest prison riot you ever saw. I want the effing movie shown. And I want it shown to the inmates because I promised them for years because nobody believed there was going to be a movie. Big talk for someone who actually got abused quite a bit due to his celeb status.
Yeah.
Sadly, to the point that he was actually viciously gang raped and beaten so bad that he was hospitalized. And that would leave him with lifelong nightmares. That's unfortunate. I personally think John needed this win, if you will. Like them showing this film based on his life, that was a win for him.
Oh, yeah. Especially if he said it's going to be happening and nobody would believe him. Nobody was believing him.
So I previously mentioned that John had issues with the film. One of the biggest issues was the relationship and appearance of his first wife, Carmen, who was played by Susan Perez as Angie in the film. First, he was not happy with the portrayal of Carmen Angie as a plain, overweight woman whose behavior led to his relationship with Elizabeth, when in actuality, he'd left Carmen 2 years prior to meeting Elizabeth. He stated the film made Carmen look horrible and inferred that I left her and winded up in the arms of a gay man because of her. That's completely untrue, and I feel sorry for the actress for having to play such a horrible role. As I mentioned, John was released in 1978, and aside from the few thousand that John gave to Elizabeth for her surgery, he didn't see much of the profits from the film. Remember, $50 million it made.
Yeah.
John would actually be contesting this until his death. I should note that the New York State Victims Compensation Board redirected tens of thousands of dollars to the hostages. So that's a big part of why he didn't see that money.
Mm-hmm.
After his release, John applied as a security guard at the same Chase Manhattan bank he robbed. He said, I'm the guy from Dog Day Afternoon and I'm guarding your bank. Nobody's going to rob the Dog's Day Bank or the Dog's Bank. Okay. I can't imagine why, but they declined to hire him. I can't. Yeah. What?
I mean, you know what's really funny is that, like, if it happened today, they'd probably do it.
John, by this time, had fully embraced his dog persona. John found a job cleaning toilet bowls on Park Avenue and ended up on welfare, living with his mom. He would spend his free time in front of the bank, wearing a t-shirt that said, I robbed this bank. He would also sign autographs. I'm not going to lie. If I was in New York and I saw him and I knew the story, I'd be like, hey, let me get a picture with you.
Yeah.
It's quite the story. It's quite the story. Like, it is a captivating story.
Yeah. And like you said, it seemed like he was even like the hostages didn't seem that upset with it. You know, like they seemed like he was a decent guy.
I mean, he's getting them food. He's making sure they still can talk to their family.
Yeah.
I mean, as a hostage, life was pretty good.
I mean, if you're going to be taken hostage, that's the type of hostage
taker
you want to have.
Exactly. So John died of cancer in 2006 at the age of 60. There's been several documentaries made about John. The Dog, also known as Storyville, The Great Sex Addict Heist, was a 10-year process. It was 10 years in the making. New York filmmakers Allison Berg and Frank Kurodrin found John in 2002. They literally went and found him. Allison said they were curious to see if he was as compelling as his film counterpart. And in fact, he was 100 times more unusual and interesting and hilarious, she said. The filmmaker spent every other weekend with the dog and his mother, Terry. After John's death in 2006, the filmmakers reached out to others for interviews. The film premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in September of 2013. The third memory sees real-life dog John reenacting the events of his bank robbery with actors and props on a reconstruction of Sidney Lumet's set. Added in is actual footage from the film and news footage. It was released in 2000. It's 10 minutes long. And then, based on a true story, released in 2004, is 15 minutes. It's a documentary about John and Sal's robbery attempt. But that is the story of the dog, John Wadowitz, aka the dog.
The dog.
Wow. Have you seen Dog Day Afternoon?
You know, I haven't. It's there's a lot of Pacino movies I haven't seen from the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah,
so I need to fix that.
Yeah,
I know it. You know, I just saw Taxi Driver within the last couple of years, so I'm slowly working my way through them.
I was telling my stepdad about it, and I was like, because he said he's like Al Pacino is one of his favorite actors, and he was like, I don't remember that movie, so hopefully he'll get to watch that and know that it is based on a true story.
Yeah, and it definitely said, because like I've seen Scarface and like the, The Godfather, yeah, and it just they all seem kind of similar, but this sounds very different. So
Yeah.
I probably just chalked it up to the same sort of thing without really ever giving it a second look. So
Well,
I
you
will have to,
absolutely should now. You
and I will
definitely need
give
to
it.
check it out.
So, and according to, we'll just bring a little of the A sided. You can watch it on HBO Max. Um, it is available to rent on Amazon Prime, YouTube, and Apple TV, but it is free with your HBO Max subscription. So if you're like Adam and you haven't seen Dog Day Afternoon and you may be doing that tonight before you go to bed, just use your HBO Max subscription, which if you're like Adam, you forgot you had until a few weeks ago.
Speaking of subscriptions, I actually bundled my Hulu because I have Hulu and Disney Plus, and there's like a bundle package where you get ESPN as well. So Chris Evans, boo, if you ever need ESPN, I got you, boo.
So when you bundled so what? Because I did the same thing. Like I had Hulu already, then Disney Plus came out, and then so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just sign up for everything. And then they're like, oh, well, there's a bundle, but they still charge me individually for each thing. So are you getting charged individually for each one?
Yes, but I get a credit from Disney
Okay.
towards like my Hulu. So the bundle together is $13.99, and so I get like I don't know, it's like a $6 credit from Disney towards my account because of the fact that I have the Hulu bundle.
Because mine was, they took what I was already paying Hulu and then they discounted Disney Plus and ESPN, but then they still charge me individually. So each month I get charged 1 cent for ESPN Plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like going through my register and I'm like, is that like a real transaction? Oh yeah, that's what I pay for ESPN Plus. And the best thing is I get more value out of ESPN Plus than I do any other subscription service for what I'm paying.
See, I have no man, but when I get one, I've got it covered because I'll have ESPN.
Oh, they got like the 30 and 30 documentaries and stuff. Those
yeah.
And then, and like they got all the weird sports on there too. So
But there you go. So that is the story of John Wadowitz, aka the dog.
The dog.
And that is your B-side.
See, that was very uplifting.
See, I told you this one is more captivating. I mean, yes, it's a true crime story, and yes, he did rob a bank, and unfortunately, one of his co-conspirators did die as a result of it. But the story itself is just like wild, especially that it
funny. Like when you mentioned somebody died at the beginning, I was like sitting like here, like trying to figure it out. Like I'm watching Murder She Wrote. Like, okay, who's gonna die? Who's gonna die? And then I totally forgot. And then when the guy died, I was like, oh, I should have seen that.
But it's just amazing that it garnered so much attention and it just was so captivating. So much so that so many years, even after the fact, he could just wear a t-shirt and be like, I'm the guy that robbed the bank. And had a movie made of his life. Well, not of his life,
within like a couple of years. I mean, it feels like a story that would happen now, not the mid 70s,
Right.
Like some influencer ends up robbing a bank and it's all over, like, they're doing reels and they're on TikTok and like all the hostages are doing a dance with them, and then like it feels like that level of media coverage, sort of absurdity, would happen now, not then. So
yeah,
I guess I'm kind of amazed that we haven't like made heroes of criminals more often in modern day. Maybe that's something we don't do anymore.
I guess not, but I mean, and like I said, not that he was a great guy or anything. It's just, I don't know. There's just an appeal to the story. And even in the actual movie, they touch base on his reason for the robbery, which in the 70s is like, whoa.
That's it. Yeah. It was not mainstream at the time at all.
But if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. As Adam said, you can watch it with your HBO Max subscription. It's also on, what'd you say, Amazon?
It's on Amazon Prime for $2.99, Google Play for $3.99, YouTube for $3.99, and Apple TV for $3.99. So for less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can see Dog Day Afternoon tonight.
Or just ask Adam for his subscription. He's not using it anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what my login is or anything. I'm not using it. I think I have HBO Max through my Hulu, which is very confusing, or it's through Amazon Prime. I stumble upon it sometimes.
Through your Hulu, it's so expensive through Hulu.
Yeah, and I don't think I got access to everything. I should really do something about that.
You might want to do some investigating, some research.
Yeah, sounds exhausting. I was trying to figure out how to get my real ID this week, and that's gonna be a whole thing. You got to have like 14 different pieces of paperwork to prove that you're alive.
Can I just use my passport? I wonder. This is a whole separate topic.
Yeah, no, this is a Real ID podcast now. Yeah, if you have your passport, that's great. But mine is expired. So
okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna walk in like comically with like 37 different binders up to the counter and be like, oh, I think I have my paperwork. Little old lady behind the counter is just gonna sigh and push her glasses up and be like, this is happening again.
But there you go. That is the B-side. And that's been another episode of A-Side B-Side Podcast. Of course, photos, sources on our website. A-Side. Adam.
A-Side B-Side Podcast.square.site.
Good job. Also on the website, there's ways that you can help us. Also ways you can help out in the community. I always forget to mention that one. You can also submit stories to us. Maybe like Janice did, you can send us to that guy from that show. Or if there is a true crime story that you'd like me to look into, you can do that on our website. You can also email us, asidebsidepodcasts@gmail.com. We would really greatly appreciate you. We love you anyway, but we would love you even more to the moon and back if you'd head on over to Apple and give us a rating and a review. Ways to help the podcast while you're on the website filling out your stories for us. You can also get some merch. We got t-shirts, sweatshirts, masks, because they're back in season again.
Yeah, it's almost mask season again, so get ready. It's so hot this year. Masks. You're gonna be on the runways of Paris, Milan, and your local CVS.
Coffee mugs. Speaking of coffee, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/asidebsidepod. All money goes to the promotion slash production. Thank you. I'm losing my words. Promotion slash production of the show. And I believe that's it. Oh, socials. We have the socials. We have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have Facebook. So you can get to us on the socials as well. All right. I think that's all, right, Adam?
That's all.
All right.
I feel like Porky Pig. That's all, folks.
That's all, folks. All right. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Brooke.
All right. So, Adam, before we go, website.
Oh, yes. I was like, what did I do? Literally, like if there was a cartoon of Adam's brain, it was just all the little like emotion, like if it was Inside Out, all my little emotion people stopping, looking at each other, and then running around panicked because they don't know what is supposed to be happening. So it is A-Side B-Side Podcast.square.site.
Good job. So you can head on over to A-Side B-Side podcast.square.site and you can check out photos. We've got sources, we've got links to those sources. Also, we've got merch like coffee mugs, we've got masks, we've got sweatshirts. I know it's summertime and you're thinking, who wants a sweatshirt? But sometimes it's cold in a restaurant.
Yeah, my kid's going back to school next week, so
they're already back to school here.
Yeah, and fall's coming, and granted, global warming, maybe we won't need sweatshirts till December, but at some point we will. I got a lot of sweatshirts. Like I am not prepared from a clothing standpoint, and my wardrobe for global warming. I got way too many. I got way too many jackets and hoodies, and yeah.
I have a ton of sweatshirts, and then I have a ton of our sweatshirts.
Yeah.
Also, you can buy us a coffee, like your friend Janice does. Thank you so much, Janice Fringer, because that's amazing. She supports us on a regular basis, so she definitely deserves that shout out.
And is one of the many who reminded me that I should probably diversify my that guy in that show at some point.
So you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/A-side-B-side-pod. All of that money goes towards promotion, production, and actual coffee. So, yeah. Also, we've got social medias. We've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got a Twitter. You can instant message us. You can private message us. You can direct message us, any kind of message us, email message us at asidebsidepodcasts@gmail.com and submit a story idea, maybe another that girl from that show, or maybe you've got a hometown story that you'd like us to look into. Love those. So let us know. And we would love it and appreciate. We love and appreciate you already, but even more so if you'd head on over to over to iTunes and give us a rating/review.
Yeah, Spotify as well.
Can you rate on Spotify?
I think so. You can like it.
You can follow us.
Yeah, I mean that's good.
Yeah. We'd appreciate a follow.
Yeah.
Share it. We've got a YouTube. You can subscribe, subscribe, share on YouTube.
One of these times we should just like do an act. We do this on Zoom. We should have the camera on and make people watch us.
Would you want to do that?
Do I know? But I think it would be interesting. One of those things where like I'd rush it and be like, that's what I'm doing with my face the whole time. Oh. It's like when I first took the mask off this spring, and I'd been working in the restaurant for a year with the mask on, and I had to relearn my face because I may not have been doing real good with the poker face behind the mask when some things were happening. So I had to relearn that.
That is the really good thing about the mask, that you can make faces or mumble things and people have no idea.
Yeah. I have what I like, like there is the social idea of resting bitch face. Sorry for the language.
RBF.
RBF. I believe that I have a variation of RBF, and it's called disappointed dad face. So it's not.
So you have DDF.
I have DDF. Yeah, it's not that I'm mad at you. I wish you hadn't done that.
Right.
And that is how my face looks at rest. So after not seeing it for a year, my coworkers for like the first month were all like, "Adam, are you okay?" Like,
and you're like, "Yep, that's just my face."
Oh, this is just my face. Yeah, I'm just sort of disappointed in you at all times. I apologize, but that's how I look. I'm not actually disappointed in you. So then I'll like realize I'm doing that because somebody will ask me, and then I'll put on like this ridiculous like smile, and people are like, "That's worse. Don't." You look,
you look like the Joker. Like, stop it.
Yeah, you look like the Joker's laughing gas, and your face is frozen into like a laugh, and that's just not good. So let's go back to disappointed dad, because that's at least something we understand. Faces, I tell you.
Man, well, both Adam and I, big proponents for the vaccine.
Yeah.
This is our podcast, so we can say that. If you don't like it. At work, I can't say that, but here I can say it because it's mine. But no, seriously.
In Minnesota, they're giving you $100.
Seriously?
Yeah.
There was a lottery
like,
here.
Go back? I got the J&J one. Can I like upgrade for $100?
There was a lottery here. You could enter and you had a shot at $1 million or like groceries for life. I was like, either way, I'm good.
I was gonna say, like, who gets to that decision is like, $1 million or groceries.
But I'm like, do you know how much I spend on groceries? Yeah, I'll take groceries.
But it's not like you can't like turn around and invest the groceries.
True. But
Now,
all the
they
money
would've
you would have spent on groceries, you can now invest.
That's true. That's true. I feel like that would be a bad thing for me because I'd be like, well, I'm not paying for these. I'm going to get everything. And then I'm just like sitting there with like a giant case of ho-hos that I don't like really want
I'm
to
sure
eat.
you get a monthly limit, but still.
Yeah. But I'd end up buying all the wrong stuff that I'd have to go grocery shopping anyway. I'd be like, why do I have every flavor of gummy worm? Because I could.
As long as they're Albanese, because those are the best.
Oh, I just get the gummy, what is it? The gummy crawlers? Trolley. Trolley is my brand.
I mean, Trolley is good, but Albanese, it's top notch.
Where do you Albanese?
Mm-hmm.
Like the city Albany? Like they own it?
No, it's ALBANESE, I think it is.
Yeah, I've never seen these.
They're good. Oh, and by the way, real fast side note, because I know you love Mountain Dew.
I do.
You know Mountain Dew is coming out with an alcoholic beverage?
I didn't. That's what?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know. So Mountain Dew used to be a mixer. Before it was a soda. It was, it was like sour. Mountain Dew, create alcohol, and Boston beer. What? How did I miss this?
So I'm sure this will be something you'll be serving soon.
Oh, well, I mean, maybe. We don't even have Mountain Dew on tap. We don't even have Mellow Yellow. We have
what?
We have a very strange selection of. Don't get me started. We got Mr. Pibb. Like, no one has Mr. Pibb.
Over Mellow Yellow?
Over Mellow Yellow, and we've got Fruit Punch, which
I mean, I'm down for the Fruit Punch. That's cool.
Yeah, but yeah, we don't have Mellow Yellow. I don't know why, but it's probably good because I just drink a lot of it. Instead, I try to drink water. Okay, but like, what a lame name, Hard Mountain Dew.
Maybe they're trying to compete with Mike's hard cider.
Come on. I guess. I mean, the cans look cool. I mean, you've got regular, black cherry. There's a watermelon. Not sure about that.
I think it's just those three. I think.
Interesting. It sounds like a ridiculous idea, but I'm not surprised. Because Pepsi's got a gold mine with the Mountain Dew stuff. Because they figured out that they could just spin that off and have like Baja Black. Like Mountain Dew became its own Pepsi.
Yeah.
You got all the different. You got your Code Reds, like orange, whatnot. I'm a purist.
I'm surprised that Code Red is not going to be an alcoholic one.
Well, the black cherry, that sure looks like a Code Red. And they got zero sugar.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to taste like Mountain Dew.
I know, right?
I am on record saying that I love Mountain Dew to a ridiculous level. Like, there was a mural of a bunch of high school students in high school. And when they drew me, my mural character was a caricature, had a 20 ounce of Mountain Dew so people could tell it was me in his hand. And I used to, drink 2-liter bottles in a day. I mean, my dentists are real excited about that. But there is nothing worse on earth than Diet Mountain Dew. When they take the sugar out, is not right. So I don't know if taking the sugar out and replacing it with maybe this is the jump the shark moment for malt beverage.
It's very possible. Yeah. I'll give it a try, but if it tastes like White Claw or something, I'm not going to like it.
Yeah, it's probably just going to taste like a White Claw, which
gross.
That's not my jam. I mean,
not mine either.
I mean, if I want something to taste like White Claw, I'll get some Jolly Ranchers and some Zima and sink that Jolly Rancher to the bottom of the Zima, and boom, that's better than a White Claw.
Oh man. All right. So there you go. That's another episode of A Side, B Side. Do you have anything else, Adam?
I'm just excited. This is also a Mountain Dew podcast now. So I have so much more to add.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Brooke.
As always, thank you for listening to A-Side, B-Side podcast. If you enjoy the show, please, if you don't mind, head on over to Apple and leave us a rating or a review. And if you'd like to continue to support the podcast, you can do so by heading on over to Patreon, or you can buy us a coffee, as well as buying merch on our website, asidebsidepodcast.square.site. From Adam and I at A-Side, B-Side podcast, please remember to wear your mask, social distance if you're around people that don't live in your household, and just be safe and happy. Thanks again from us here at A-Side, B-Side podcast.